This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's community access radio station Plains FM 96.9 and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Good morning, beauties. It is Rebecca Davison here, founder of the Intuitive Life Academy. Welcome to the Find Your Bliss show here on Plains FM. Welcome. So here on the Find Your Bliss show, we talk about all things spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric, intuitive and psychic. So hi folks on Facebook. I always broadcast the first 20 minutes or so on my Facebook page, so you can always check it out there. But you can also find the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. So, and the purpose of this radio show / podcast is really to help you to evolve, to help you live a life that you really love. The values of the Intuitive Life Academy are freedom, pleasure and abundance. So that's why I come onto the radio show to share information that's going to support you in your journey. So folks, first up, I want to share with you that I am running a webinar this weekend that only happens once a year. Now this is for Intuitive Mastery, which is my signature program. It is pretty much the culmination of my life's work. It's a 10-month program, but I'm going to share information on the webinar, which is totally free this weekend at 9:30 on Sunday. Now I've made it at that time, so it's easier for people overseas to be able to connect on the call as well over the weekend. But I'm going to share with you what it takes to really get your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions lined up so you can become unstoppable. And the key, of course, to do that is really through the power of your intuition. Your intuition is your infinite power, and I can guarantee that you're not using it till its full potential at the moment. But when you do, all these doors will open up for you. You will see synchronicities, you'll experience what you probably perceive to be magic, which is not really, it's actually just our natural state of being. But often the process of developing your intuition is letting go of all the conditioning, all the limiting beliefs that we have, so we can experience our true state, which is pure love frequency. So if that's of interest to you, do go to my website, which is www.rebeccadavison.life. On the very first page, you'll see a big button and it says, here's the link to the webinar. So make sure you don't miss it. It's only happening once, and it's happening this weekend. It's totally free, and I can guarantee you that it can change your life. If you're curious about living from your soul-based energies, then yeah, do come along and check it out and allow yourself to be inspired. So today, folks, I'm talking about my spiritual awakening, my journey from going from fear, doubt, contraction, guilt, shame into freedom and pleasure and abundance. So there's 2 points that I really want to speak to in regards to this journey. And you know how often when people are asked about their story, they're asked about a significant moment, and which is really hard, right, when you're going through a process of change, because every moment is a process of change. But there are 2 significant moments that I would like to speak to, and I have spoken to before, but I'm going to unpack them with a little bit more depth today. So the first one is, gosh, how many years ago now? It must be about 14 years ago, I'm guessing. I had come out of, I had been married, and I was on the tail end of a divorce. So in New Zealand, you have to be separated for 2 years before you can actually get divorced. So I was at that end of the process, and I remember I had come home from my corporate job. I was working in banking, so I was still dressed in my uniform, and I remember sitting on my sofa at home in my cute little house that I lived in like Marihow in Christchurch, and I was on the phone to my mum, and I was just miserable. Like, I was bawling my eyes out, and I said to her, like when you're so upset too that you're sobbing, like crying is one thing, but sobbing is when you're like you can't breathe, right? So you're like you're at that stage. I was so upset because I felt everything felt very hopeless. I'd gone through a divorce. I felt really ashamed about that. We hadn't been married for long at all. We'd only been married for a year. And, I realized that we shouldn't have got married at all, but, I wasn't listening to my intuition at that point in time in my life. I had this really amazing job, but I felt guilty about it because I didn't love it. And I knew a lot of other people would have loved to have had that job. I got paid well for it by the bank's standards, but I still felt limited within that. I remember saying to my mum, I feel like I have to wear armor every day to go to this job, and that felt really heavy. It felt confining, and it felt really depressing. Imagine living in a coat of armor every day, getting up and having that coat of armor. It's heavy, right? It is depressing. It is draining. So here I was in a circumstance where I was just wearing my uniform, but I'm talking to my mum on the phone, and I remember saying to her, I was almost pleading with her, like, for her to have the answers. And I know it was hard for her to hear it too. Like, who wants to hear that their adult child is really struggling, that they've come through this horrible circumstance of going through a divorce, which I haven't really talked about much, but again, just feeling like such a fool, it's so silly for not seeing all the red flags and responding accordingly, and for making the highest and best choices for myself. So here I am at home after work. It's probably like a Wednesday or something, and I'm bawling my eyes out and I'm sobbing. And I said to my mum, I want to live a big life. I want to live a big life, because I was feeling so confined and restricted by this heaviness, by the expectations. I felt like I couldn't really be myself at work. And I could to a certain extent, of course. You're interacting, you have your own sense of humour, but there's a limit. And what I realised ages later is that my values weren't lined up with the bank, but that took a long time. So I'm in this circumstance, I'm in this moment, and I'm like bawling my eyes out, and I'm miserable, and I'm feeling it in my body, and I'm crying is literally a relief at this point in time, to just let some of this heaviness out of my body. And I pleaded with my mum. I was just like, I want to live a big life, Mum. And she's like, I know, darling, and, really just supporting me and being there for me. But it was almost like looking back on that moment and why it's significant. It was like the universe heard me. When it heard me say, I want to live a big life. And that's what I remember mostly from that conversation, that I was crying, I was really upset, I was like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, and I want to live a big life. And it's like the universe went, right, you've made your declaration, here's the information for the next step. And probably about a week later, not even that, a friend of mine sent me a link to an email for the very, very first beginnings of what was Mind Valley. Now, if you don't know what Mind Valley is, it is one of the biggest personal development companies in the world now. I saw Vishen Lakhiani speak in 2016 at one of Christy Marie Sheldon's events, which I'll talk about more later, but and he said at that point in time the company was worth $150 million. So it's huge, right? You'll often see a lot of advertisements. If you've ever done any of the programs, they've done things like, health, abundance, wellness, spirituality, meditation, getting your food right, your exercise right, getting your, different, essentially, university that you can attend outside of the current education system. Because when we think about it, the current education system doesn't really give us what we need, right? It doesn't tell us how to feel our emotions. It doesn't tell us how to balance our checkbook. It doesn't actually give us the practical real life information that we really need to be able to cope out there. So, going back to Mind Valley, so it was Finer Mind. So it was actually one of the very first things that Vishen did, which was he collaborated with another guy, and they did a thing called a gratitude log. And the idea behind it was every day you had to log into this platform and you had to write down 10 things that you were grateful for. And so I used to do it when I got to work. And what started happening at work, like I worked at the bank, in front of a desk, in front of a computer monitor, actually in front of 2 computer monitors. And what I would notice that I'd start doing is I put up all these little notes of inspiration around my desk. So I was looking at them all day long, right? Like how to overcome any challenge, or motivational quotes, or, you have to be the change that you seek, or, just anything to help inspire me and focus my direction on where I wanted it to go. So from that point there, I started going into this gratitude log. And what I started to notice is very gradually, I started to feel better. I made gratitude my priority. It was pretty much the first step, because gratitude, now I have an awareness that is so good for your vibration, right? It's the one thing that can help lift and expand your vibration really quickly, which is why in pop psychology and also in spiritual circles, we talk about it so much. Because when we're expressing gratitude, we're opening our heart, we're opening our energy, we're opening our chakras. When we expand our energy, it's easier to manifest what it is that we want. So I started concentrating on this, and from there I started following everything that Mind Valley did. And you know why? Because I was I was in such a bad space. It really was the best thing for me to do. I was in a circumstance at that point in time where I was definitely drinking too much, and it was perpetuating itself. So I would get through the week, which was stressful, especially on a Friday, right? Because often Friday in banking is the day that everybody does their conveyancing, i.e., they buy and sell houses. There's a deadline because the solicitor needs the money so they can give the client the keys because the client wants to move in over the weekend. So there's a lot of pressure, a lot of deadlines, a lot of you've got to get this done. So on a Friday night when it was all over, right, when the bank closed 5 o'clock, whoa, you have a glass of wine in your hand. It was a decompression valve, it was a release. So, but at that time, of course, what happens when you have a couple of drinks, that can lead into a couple more drinks. I was drinking way too much, and then I was making really bad decisions when I was drinking, and, I was unhappy. And of course, what happens, the knock-on effect of that, if you've got a hangover the next day, that does not contribute to your happiness. So rule number one, if anybody's listening and they're suffering from depression, stop drinking, right? Stop drinking immediately. It is not helping. In fact, it is perpetuating the problem. So I was really depressed at this point in time. I wasn't probably eating that well. What my diet looked like is I might have some cornflakes or something in the morning. There was always a coffee and a scone around about 10:30, and then you probably weren't that hungry at lunchtime, so you weren't eating a proper salad, protein-based meal. You were kind of going into about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you'd want something sugary because, of course, your blood sugar had dropped because of the scone and the coffee, right? And so you'd eat something carby or sugary, and then by the time you got home, you would be starving. Because the thing that happens as well when you're working in front of a desk, especially if you're using a lot of brain capacity, is you get physically hungry. You're using a lot of brain power. It makes you physically hungry. And if you're not eating properly, you're putting yourself in a downward spiral. Those up and lows with the sugar. Oh, it was so bad. And then drinking on top of that, there's lots of sugar in the alcohol. And then the knock-on effect, having a hangover all day on a Saturday. It wasn't, and then feeling like you're not really living your best full life. It was not a good time. That, not eating properly, I did exercise in the respect that I would walk to work, but that was probably good stress relief. But even the hours, I had to get up at 6:30 to be able to get to work by 8:30. Now I naturally wake up at 6:30, but I don't have to be anywhere. So, it was a really difficult, stressful, unpleasant time in my life. And you know what the scariest thing was, is I knew that I had to get out of there, but I had no idea how to do it. I had no clues. I could not see the wood for the trees, and that was alarming. And then what happened next is the universe went, let me help you out, and my job got disestablished. And my ego went into orbit. I was like, how can they do this to me? This is terrible. What am I going to do? Because it's that feeling of having the carpet ripped out from underneath your feet. But I tell you what, it's the best thing that could have happened to me. The universe was saying, you need to move. This is not where you belong, right? This is not your value proposition. Get out. But I struggled and flailed for another 18 months. I'm embarrassed to admit it. Right, what happened is my role got disestablished, and there was a whole bunch of miscommunication, and I felt really angry about that because they weren't clear. I thought I'd lost my job, and then they were like, no, we're just going to give you another one. So I ended up in business banking for about a year. And again, I was like, I have no clues what I'm doing here, because it was very different. I know that sounds peculiar, but it was very different from private banking where I was, and very different again from retail banking, because you're looking at profit and loss statements, projections, financials a lot more with business banking than you are with any of those others, because often you're dealing with people who just have a regular income as opposed to owning a business. So, I felt so out of my depth. And I remember sitting in that office actually one night all by myself, still at work, and I started listening to Wayne Dyer, and he was talking about, creating freedom for yourself and stepping out of your comfort zone, and I knew that I had to go, but I had no idea what the next step was. And I don't even actually remember how it came about, but I saw a program on event management, and for some reason I thought that would be a good idea. Now, a lot of people, I remember actually getting to the other end of my event management program, but compared to what I'm doing now, and having people say to me, oh, what a waste of time. Nothing is ever a waste of time, right? If you are doing, like now, doing event management is perfect for my business, because of course I run events. So, but at the time you might think, oh, you've just wasted a year. That's incorrect perspective. Nothing's ever wasted. So I left the bank, which was like a hallelujah moment. I actually took my superannuation that, because you used to contribute and the bank used to match, and they used to convince you have to stay there because of that, because you'll never get this anywhere else, right? Oh, I want to blow that to bits. I took my superannuation and I kind of used that effectively to live off for the year while I was doing my studying, because I still, had my property, still had to pay a mortgage, etc., had my flatmates, etc., got everything kind of sorted so I could go and do this event management. And I tell you what, the liberation and freedom that came from just stepping out of that role, it was amazing, and I loved it. I loved being in the environment. I actually did my kind of mentorship with Martin Trustham, who was working at, it was called Christchurch Polytech then, it's now ARA, which is just next door from here, ironically. And loved being in that creative environment. Organised the fashion show that they had, because of course the people who are doing design, making clothes at ARA, they need the models to do the fashion show at the end of the year to showcase all their designs. So I was involved in doing the model show, selecting the models, helping them to coordinate all of that and bring it together for the end of year show, which was so much fun, and it was such a creative, buzzy environment. And again, nothing to do with what I'm doing now, but I loved the experience. It gave me a really amazing, this is what feels good. This feels more like freedom. This feels more expansive. So realizing, it was reinforcement from my soul saying, yes, choose what it is that you love. Choose to do the things that make you feel expanded. So it was a blissful year for that purpose. And the irony was, because that was back in 2010, the irony was, by the end of that year, I was still kind of working. No, I wasn't, was I? I can't remember. No, I'd left the bank completely. But at the end of the year, of course, in Christchurch, the earthquakes hit. Boom. October 2010, wasn't it? October, September. The first earthquake hit, and then of course by February the next year we had a huge earthquake, which resulted in a huge amount of loss and a loss of life for about 200 people, I think it was. So a really sad and difficult time. And I'd been invited by the bank. The bank had approached me in like October, November and said, come back and do some work for us. So I ended up going to the earthquake support team and helping them, which was crazy too, because we were doing all sorts of credit policy, which was, supporting the red zone people, supporting people who their house was a write-off. So we did all the conveyancing, and it was insane. Like, we did so many loans in that place. It was incredible. And it was complicated too, right? You're working with an insurance company, you're working with the government for what they were paying people out for their property, the land. So the insurance company, the land, the EQC, and the bank. It wasn't stressful in the respect that I could actually choose my own hours, but it was stressful in the fact that the work was intense, right? And you're dealing with people's heightened emotions. I remember, one time and again, you're getting 50 phone calls a day from people going, what is going on? What do I do? I'm scared. I'm freaked out. I've lost my house. My house is crumbling. So, you'd have people from the insurance company ringing up. I remember speaking to a beautiful wee girl, and she said to me, she was really upset. You could hear it in her voice. And I said to her, it sounds like you need a hug. And she just burst into tears. And she's a lady from the insurance company, right? And another time where, I'd spoken to like 50 people that day. And this guy rings up at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he has been on the phone to 4 different places, like his solicitor, his insurance company, EQC, which was not easy for people because also the EQC, right? The Earthquake Commission, if you're not from New Zealand. They went from having like 10 people to like 1,000 or something. So it was all a bit messy. And goodness knows when it comes to money and mess, people don't do so well. They like the clarity. And this guy is speaking to me on the phone, and he's yelling at me. He's like, you're the 4th person that I've spoken to today. And, this is BS. And, you need to give me some answer. And he was just letting rip. And what he didn't realise is he's probably the 50th person that I'd spoken to that day, but he's just letting me have it because he's feeling frustrated and upset and angry, and goodness knows money can do that to people. That's what I learnt in banking. And I was sitting there and I was like, I can't do this, So you know what I did? I knew that if I kept talking, I was going to swear at him. I knew in every single cell of my body, I was just like, I was going to go, who the F do you think you are? And just let rip. So because I was a bank employee, I said nothing. Right? And eventually, after his big spiel, he started yelling at me and saying, are you still there? Are you still there? Clearing and transmuting all that. Anyway, so I just said to him, I'd waited again, excuse me, and I said to him, when you've calmed down, we can continue this conversation. Because again, even at that point in time, I'd done that before with solicitors as well too, where I'd actually said, solicitor going off at you, which happens in banking, all my banking brothers and sisters, if people don't understand what's happening with the conveyancing process, or it's a deadline, or they're stressed or whatever. I remember saying to a solicitor once, I will call you back, or you can call me back when you've calmed down. I'm going to hang up now, right? You have to learn those boundaries. And even with this client, I was like, I'm not going to continue to talk to you if you speak to me that way. If you're yelling and screaming at me, I'm not going to have this conversation. So I just said, yes, I'm still here, and I still kept the silence. But inside me, I was just like, this is this is ridiculous. This is rubbish. This is literal BS. I do not want to be in this environment where people think that it's okay to talk to me like that. You couldn't pay me all the money for the tea in China, right? So I'm just going to take a sip of my drink here, folks. Green tea. Oh yeah, that's better. So I was just like, you can't pay me enough money to want me to stay in this situation. It was soul destroying on so many different levels to be in an environment where you're like, it's not okay for people to talk to you like that. So I, at this time, I started looking for, my escape route. I was like, there has to be something better than this out there. There has to be something more. Oh, I've got a wee cough. There we go. Sorry about that, Facebook. So at that time, I was really going, I need to get out of here. I need to leave. I need to go out of this environment where people think that it's okay to talk to me like this. And it was frightening. It was a really frightening time because I didn't know what the future looked like. The roles at the earthquake support team were being reduced. And I knew that I didn't really want the job. And yeah, even looking back on it, I'm really grateful for everything that I learnt from the bank. But it's hard to look back and go, I actually put myself in that situation for an extended period of time. Folks, I worked in the bank on and off for 13 years. Right, and it's been 8 years now, 9 years since I've been out of the bank. But it's a really long time to put yourself in a place where you're not loving it. All right, it's a really long time. Excuse me. To put yourself in a place where you're open to that kind of attack. It was hard enough as it was dealing with the stress. I just cringe at the fact that I did that to myself in a lot of ways because I didn't know better. I didn't know any different. I thought that that's what you had to do because I knew you have to make money, the bank is a good, secure job, and I have to do this. I have to suffer. And I just, if you're listening to this and you're in a job and it's making you suffer, please know that even though you might not be able to see it right now, there is always another alternative. But you have to reach for it and you have to choose it. And you have to follow your own inner guidance. So again, being in that circumstance, and this is what happened too, like we all went for the interview for the, there were 5 places I think in the earthquake support team and it was going down to 3. And I'd been there, one of the people who'd been there the longest, but that wasn't a given. And that morning I actually did my angel cards and got career transition. So I knew that I hadn't got the job, which was fine by me too, because I hadn't wanted it. But I didn't really know what I was moving towards at that point in time. But I knew, right, that it was time to go. And yeah, it was just really fascinating how it all unfolded because it was like I'd already made this decision on a deep down level. And at this time too, I'm doing every single Mind Valley course that they're offering. And it was through that program, through Mind Valley, that I found Christy Marie Sheldon. Now, Christy did a video with Vishen, and Vishen was talking about how he had 40 employees at that point in time and how he wanted to grow his business and he was feeling blocked, right? He was feeling stuck on it because he didn't want to take on more staff because he didn't want to be responsible for more people. So Christy did an energy clearing with him and he said, within 3 months he'd grown his business to 112 people all over the world. And of course I was still in banking at that time, so it was all about the numbers and I was just like, whoa, that's incredible. So I started following Christy, did her Love or Above, did her Unlimited Abundance, which, to be fair, didn't really resonate with me at the time. It did on one level, but not completely. Like I knew that it felt nice and I enjoyed the sessions, but I wasn't really seeing tangible results in my life. But I knew that I enjoyed it enough to want to continue on. And that's when I did my coach training, and that was back in 2011 or 2012. 2011, I think it was. And again, that was for 10 months, right? And again, when I started that, I had no clues that I was going to be a spiritual coach, right? That I was going to end up doing this work. I just started it. I went, this feels good, I'm going to do it. And I had enough awareness of that because, of course, I'd been doing event management and realized what it felt like to actually do something that you really loved and that you're more aligned with. And it's more of a value match. So I did Intuitive Abundance, and I'm still working at the earthquake support team at this time in my coach training, which was great because I had a lot of flexibility. Like in looking back, the universe always brings you what it is that you need, always. And then eventually I don't recommend this, okay? I don't recommend this because looking back, I think, oh my goodness, that was insane. But the universe definitely stepped in to help me, and I'll tell you what that happened. I put a date on my calendar. And not that I don't recommend that you don't do that, but I did it quite quickly. So, I finished my course and I was just like 20th of March, 24th, 23rd, 20th of March that year, I was like, I'm out. right? And I had it lined up that I spoke at Wanderlust. So I left on the Friday, and on the Sunday morning, I was speaking at an event called Wanderlust, which was in Auckland. Johnny Halstead, who I'd done some event management with, he organises that. He got the licence to bring it to New Zealand and Australia. And I was very fortunate that, my old mentor, I guess, Karen South, connected us and said, hey, Rebecca's doing this now. Get Rebecca to come and speak, which I did. And I spoke about being powerful and authentic, and which I did not prepare for. How's that speech writing process? I, kept on going to write it, and it never came together. And then I literally went up behind a tree before it was about to start. I said to the universe, you're going to have to help me out here. I spoke for about 45 minutes. I don't even remember what I said. I remember the top of my head, my crown just kind of blew off, because what happened is, I shared a lot of personal information about circumstances that have happened to me, like, all the shame factors, like having lost my license for drinking and driving, having gone through a divorce, having circumstances where, being sexually attacked, all these kind of things that, now I can talk about and have no issue with. I don't have any shame around it because I've claimed it and transcended it, and it's not even a non-issue, which is often why I don't go into the story of it. But I know that it's important for people to hear that, because if you've been through those circumstances, you need to know that you can get to the point too where it's not an issue in your life anymore. It's not happening now, but the only thing that might be happening is you may still have some energy of it on it. And that's the beautiful thing about doing intuitive work, right? It helps you to literally clear out your energetic frequency, because you're going into your subconscious and shifting those limiting beliefs, and those limiting beliefs have a charge on them. That's why they're there. So I spoke at this event, and I was very honest, and I said to them, I'm here sharing this information not to make you feel bad for me, but is to let you know that you can also transcend the shame of these circumstances, or, like losing your job and being frightened about that. It's teaching you something. It's showing you patience or resilience or strength or courage. And that's what it is to be truly authentic, is to claim, anything inside of ourselves that we consider as dark or contracted. We want to love it. We want to embrace it. We want to set it free so it doesn't have a hold over us anymore. And never before, of course, people do this all the time with money. They give money authority rather than going, I'm actually the creator of it. And this is what happens in terms of where we end up spending 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week at work. Doing something that we might not love just for the money is soul crushing. So here I am at this event, and I'm speaking about this on stage, and then afterwards I just casually said, if anybody's interested in learning more, I walk off the stage, I guess ambushed by all these people, like people wanting to work with me, people wanting to give me their email address, can I sign up for your your newsletter, etc. And that's pretty much how I launched my business. Now, I don't recommend that to other people in the respect that, well, maybe I do. Hey, go for it. Do you know what I mean? Because the universe will always support you. Because I tell you what happened next. It was around about the earthquake times, and my mum and dad, I was actually looking to move my house and move out of my house to get my house fixed for earthquake repairs, that is. And I was going to take my flatmates with me. And at that time, they were giving you money so you could go and rent somewhere. I found a place not far from our place. I was really excited about it. It was a beautiful property. I was going to move there with my flatmates, and confirmed with the woman on Friday, and was going to move in like a week's time or something. And she rang me on the Monday morning, and she said, I've given it to somebody else who has more money, right? And I was just like, whoa. And then I couldn't believe it. But that night, I'd spoken to my insurance company about it, and that night they deposited like $10,000 into my bank account for rental money. And then the next day, my parents said to me, well, why don't you come and stay at our place, because we're going overseas for 6 weeks. So that was pretty much how my business got launched, right? Because I took a big risk, and it paid off. And this is what happens. The universe always does do that. But, I appreciate that depending on how much courage and boldness you have will depend on how much it pays off. But you don't want to put yourself in a circumstance, if you haven't done the work on your limiting beliefs, you don't want to put yourself out there and be in magical thinking, right? In terms of, I can step out and create this business and then not have your belief system in alignment with that, then yes, you will get into trouble. But I was good. I was like, I'm going to make this happen no matter what. And it has, right? I've been doing this for 8 years full time now. But in terms of my spiritual awakening as such, I've shared with you guys before how I got zapped. That was another pivotal moment in my life when I was in London, and I had just left my boyfriend behind in the United States, and I'd gone to London, and I was miserable. Like, I had grief like I've never known grief before. And what I realized later, I think I've told you guys, is that I'd had multiple lifetimes with him, and so I was grieving all of those lifetimes as well. Like, I literally thought that I was insane with a level of grief that I was experiencing. Like, it was physical, visceral, palpable. It was really intense. And I bumped into a friend of mine on the street that I'd gone to school with. I hadn't seen her for 5 years. She opens up her diary, and she's got it, and we hadn't been in contact. She's got "Write to Becky" written in her diary. How's that for a synchronicity? And then she invites me to come to church with her, and her husband's the Pentecostal pastor, and I'm kind of sitting there. At that point in time, I was very resistant to church and religion, especially. I was just like, ugh, and but he's saying, who wants to receive Jesus? And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't not stand up, because here she is, and there he is, and it's all about me and my junk, right? It was nothing to do with them. They're just lovely people. So but I stood up going, well, this will be embarrassing because nothing's going to happen. And he came over and he placed his hand on my head, and it felt like a bolt of lightning moving through my body, and the next thing I know, I'm on the ground. And then when I kind of come to, because it was not like blacking out, but it was like falling on a bed of rose petals, falling on a bed of feathers. And it was like the universe was kind of saying, wake up, right? And also too, that this is the feeling of bliss. And also what that did for me is it made me realize that that's the energy and frequency that I want to live in. And I think everybody knows this on a soul level already anyway. I would imagine that situation happened for me, probably not because I'm special or anything like that, but just because I'm probably more hard-headed than other people, and the universe kind of really needed to zap me to get the information through, right? To go, this is available to you. And from that moment, I made that commitment on a soul level, not in my conscious mind at that point in time, that I wanted to live from those energies. So here I am, fast forward several years later, I've left the bank, and I'm now stepping into being an intuitive coach. I had no clues what I was doing, right? It was really like a process of learning and showing, but the money showed up, right? The money showed up anyway, because I always believe that if you are doing your purpose, if you are doing the thing that makes you the happiest, the money will show up. Right? The money will show up because you're in the energy of yes. You're in the energy of this makes me happy. You're in the energy of joy. So, the contrast, right, of looking at that moment where I'm sitting on that sofa going, oh my goodness, to even just yesterday where I'm taking a photo from my balcony at like 8:30 in the morning going, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that I'm not sitting in front of a desk right now, and that my intuition is guiding me, and my business is exploding, and I love the people that I get to work with, and it's just a joy. I love my life. I'm so grateful. Every bit of contrast that I've had, every time there has been dissonance or an argument or conflict, I'm actually grateful for all of it. Right? I know, right? It is actually possible to be grateful for all those things in your life, because Those are the things that help you grow. Where there is contrast, there is growth. What you need to do is go to the more expanded perspective, which is the universal perspective. So I'm sure, guys, you can see why I'm so passionate about intuitive mastery. Like I said, it's my 10-month program this time round. I share basically that process in a nutshell, how you go from being the person who's crying on the sofa to being the person who's going, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I get to live like this. This is incredible. Please go to my website, www.rebeccadavison.life/ no, there's no / it's just rebeccadavison.life rather. And I've been doing that all morning, actually. I've been muddling up my words. Click on the link to join the webinar. This only happens once, and it only happens once a year. So one webinar and one offer for intuitive mastery, which happens once a year. So you've pretty much missed this webinar. That's it, right? It's not going to be offered again this year. It'll be offered again next year. And intuitive mastery is the process of getting to know yourself on the deepest levels, right? Looking inside of you and going, what is my relationship like with myself? Because if you did not know this already, hopefully it's been evident through the Find Your Bliss podcast, but your relationship with yourself on the inside determines everything that happens on the outside. Everything. Your money, your job, your happiness, your life, your opportunities, your resources. If you don't have your inside sorted out, right? You know, that's what intuition is. Intuition, going inwards and getting your inner guidance. And if you don't have that sorted out, nothing you want on the outside will show up. Everything is determined by your own inner world and the relationship that you have with self. And I know it can be scary sometimes to kind of look inwards, or we can look inwards and then we can get distracted, or we can look inwards and we think that we're holding ourselves accountable, but we don't. We let ourselves off the hook. You know, life is busy. It's easy to bump out of it. We want to really be held in a space where we can truly be accountable and see the truth of what it is that we're avoiding, denying, or not looking at. Right? And that's what intuitive mastery is all about. It's about creating a really safe container where A, you develop your intuition, B, you look at your junk, which increases your happiness exponentially, and then C, you start working in different frequencies of energy. You start developing your intuitive and psychic gifts, you know, and that can look like all sorts of things, like speaking to people who've crossed over, learning how to clear the energy on a house or a home, helping other people to clear their energy so they can live in a higher vibration, being able to spot patterns like archetypes. What does it mean to live in oneness as opposed to duality? So oneness, of course, is that shift from seeing anybody as separate to you, and a lot of people need to be aware of this. If you want to experience bliss and ecstasy today, folks, walk around realizing that everybody is an extension of you. Right? There is no separation. We're all connected. We're all energy. Right? There is, you know, yes, that person has a separate body, but you are connected by the same soul frequency. That person is you. You are that person. When you can start to see people like that, it's going to shift your perception in such a way that it's easier to experience more love. And that is what love is. It's oneness, right? It is moving from you and me to us. Okay, and that's what we really want on a soul level. We want to experience the freedom that comes with that. So I'm super excited about the webinar. It's on Sunday morning. And it's going to be lots of fun if you want to be inspired about other people who've opened up and developed their intuition and applied it to their business and got amazing results, applied it to their love life and got amazing results, applied it to their manifestations and have got amazing results, have applied it to their everyday life. Because this is the thing, folks, every moment is a manifestation, right? Every moment you want to feel good. And this is what your intuition can help to guide you, because your intuition will show you. If you want to feel good, but you've got this limiting belief, your intuition's going to show it to you. But often what happens in the rational mind goes, oh, no, that's fine. I don't see it. No, I'm going to do something else, rather than stop, address it, and release it. If you don't know how to do that, and most people don't, right, you're going to stay stuck. or the pattern of energy is going to keep on swinging back round, or you're going to feel like frustrated, right? That your life's not moving in the way that you want it to. It literally all comes back to your energetic frequency and vibration. And that's the other thing about intuitive mastery. There is a reason that it's 10 months long, because you need to be immersed in the energies. You can't just go in from your mind. This is about energy. And the energy never lies, right? Energy doesn't have an agenda. It just is what it is. So if you're still waking up in the morning and your thought processes aren't being directed towards an energy that serves you, there's work that needs to be done, right? And again, remember how I said that I started with gratitude, right? And I actually used to got to the point where I would be so aware that I would be like, I really need to clear and shift anything that I'm not grateful for in my life. Can you see how that happens, right? Because now I'm grateful for the contrast. Now I'm grateful for, loss. I lost my dad earlier this year. I'm not grateful that I lost him, but I'm grateful that I know what the truth is and that our relationship still continues, whether he has a body or not. I'm grateful for all the contraction I've experienced, so therefore it can show me what expansion is. I'm grateful for the friendships that I've had where I've been able to identify this is not a value match, right? We are not value matched. So I get to choose me, so that brings me more happiness rather than continuing to engage in relationships where I'm being psychically attacked or an energetic vampire, or somebody's kind of hooking into me in a way that doesn't feel very nice. Right? We need to start being really supersonically aware, and then making choices. It's two things: awareness and choice. What is your awareness, and are you seeing everything? Because this is often what happens, is people shut down their third eye. They don't want to see the truth. They're not allowing themselves to be in the complete truth, which can be fronting, granted. That's why you need somebody to support you in it. Right? Because if we could, we would already. That's why we need to be supported, because we might let ourselves off the hook and go, oh, I can see half of that, but I'm not really going to do anything about it, right? And that's where it continues to present itself. Something that's showing up in your life that needs to be addressing, you can probably tell just by thinking right now, like, where's a conversation that I need to have? And I'm not saying it because I have fear. We need to face that fear every single day. Fear can be an amazing signpost, right? Fear can be one of those things where you go, that's actually where I need to go, rather than to avoid. Okay, excuse me, we cough again. Sorry about that, folks. I'm just going to have another wee drink here. It gets quite dry in the studio. But as I've discovered, green tea is very good. So yeah, I guess too, folks, what are you choosing today? What are you choosing from your awareness? If you were just to check inside and ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do I feel? Am I like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? There's always, and they see the thing is as well about your vibration, what I've discovered as well, and this is something I always ask for when it comes to my intuitive guidance. What's the next level, right? What's the next level of expansion that I can go to? Woohoo! Right? You want to be living in bliss frequencies. Like, your true nature is joy. Your true nature is pure expansion. Even thinking about expanding your energy out into the universe, that is going to shift your vibration. That is your true nature. And the beautiful thing is about intuition is it's not somebody else telling you what to do. It is your guidance. You are the one who knows what's best for you. But often too, right, we give our power away by putting our authority into other people out there. No, you're the one who is infinite, right? You're the one who's divine. You're the one who has the answers. I can't tell you the number of times that I've had to work with people and help them clear energy on their own authority. Right, that they're not owning it, that they're not claiming it, that they're doing things like people pleasing, that they're giving their energy away, they're giving their power away. If you're not making value aligned choices, you will be giving your money away, right? You won't be able to hold the energy of money. So really starting to think, folks, like, what is going on for you in terms of allowing yourself to live your best life. And it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. In fact, your thought processes make it harder than it actually is, which is why, again, we have to kind of go through the subconscious and do all the decluttering in the filing cabinets down there. So everything, has anybody seen that show Home Edit? Oh my goodness, so good, on Netflix, right? And they just go in and tidy stuff and everything's in the right place. That is literally what we want to do with your subconscious. So it feels good, right? So when you go into your subconscious in regards to your belief systems, you're going into, I am worthy, I am enough, I am awesome, I can do this, rather than I'm not good enough, or I'm not allowed this, or I don't give myself permission, or ABC person is not going to approve if I go ahead and do this, right? True autonomy means that you're referring to yourself and your infinite nature first. Now, a lot of people, this is how the ego trips you up, right? A lot of people go, oh, that's selfish, right? Selfish to focus on yourself. No, it is a game changer in terms of your happiness. Self-full versus selfish. If you are full of your own energy, you actually have more to give to others. If you are full of your own delight, you have that to give to others. If you're full of your own abundance, you have that to give others. So focusing on yourself and doing the inner work, the introspection, is the most valuable thing that you can do in regards to what you can want to experience in your outer world. Again, folks, RebeccaDavison.life. If you go there, you can sign up for the webinar this weekend. Like I said, it only happens once. It's an amazing opportunity. I have 30 places on the Intuitive Mastery Program. I've had probably about 6 or 7 people contact me already to say that they're keen, and we haven't even had the webinar yet. So please don't miss your opportunity. And also too, if you're concerned about investment, I am going to make this a no-brainer, right? I'm going, because I get that feedback. People are like, oh, again, money always activates people's ego, and often it comes with resistance, right? I'm going to make this such a low bar that it's so easy to step over in terms of the investment. So don't miss out in terms of stepping into that space where you're like, yes, am I living in my full potential? Am I living in bliss frequencies in my body every day? And if I'm not, then what needs to be released so I can have that experience? And do you think abundance likes that energy? Yes. Like I said on a Facebook Live this morning, God wants you to be rich, right? The universe is abundant. When we align with wealth or abundance or cash or prosperity, we're aligning with God. Because the universe is always expanding. Pure source consciousness is ever expanding. Nature, right, which is where we see the universe in our natural world, is abundant. It has everything that it needs, right? Again, unless, there's human interaction sometimes. But again, what does it take to be the person who chooses to step into their own authority? And I get often too, what happens with people is people will say to me, oh, I'm working on my intuition. And I'm like, right? Because again, this is not something that you can do by yourself. And everybody who's done the Intuitive Mastery Program will be able to put their hand on the heart and say, yeah, absolutely. It's not something you can do by yourself. You don't know the right questions. You don't know the right information. You don't have the people to practice with. If you don't have a guideline in terms of how to use the tools, I can guarantee right now, right? Because again, people just think, oh, I can do this by myself. No, this is like taking your intuition and putting it on steroids, right? And using it, because again, like I said, thoughts, beliefs, and action. That's how you get into a congruent state. You come into alignment. You've got to have your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions all lined up. That is the formula for living your dreams. Getting your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions all lined up. You got them lined up, you can become unstoppable. Which is why, and if you keep on going, you'll eventually live your dreams, which is why I'm so passionate about facilitating people in this work. I mean, like the feedback, speaking to one of the women just yesterday, I think, gosh, it's been such a busy time. And she said to me, I have amazed myself, She's facilitating people as a coach now, and she said just getting amazing results for people. And she said it's just incredible being able to tune in and access information that she doesn't know, right, about her client. She just doesn't know it from her rational mind, but she's tuning into it because she's calibrated and got the clarity on her frequency within herself. Okay, so if you want to live a life of inspiration, folks, if you want to commit to your higher self, if you want to experience more joy in your life and in your body, please do come to the webinar, or just send me a note. The weekend especially, and the 2 days afterwards, I'm doing and I get it, not everybody can come at that time. You'll have 48 hours to watch the replay. And so it's going to be a crucial time over the weekend, over Monday, Tuesday, because I'm doing this special offer in the webinar. So you need to make sure you go and register for it, and then you'll automatically get sent the replay. So www.rebeccadavison.life. Folks, it is always a privilege. I'm going to say goodbye now to Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to connect with you guys. I feel so blessed. I love getting the feedback that people are tuning in, listening. If you've got questions, please do come and join us in the Facebook group. It's just Intuitive Life Academy on Facebook, and that's where I share a lot of inspiration, lots of live videos, and lots of obviously information in regards to how you can develop your intuition. Alrighty folks, take care, lots of love, bye.